UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely.
It is Remote Radio Week, the second last day, that being day 4 of 5. And if you've just tuned in, we're going to be talking all things free and open source radio tools with Rob Hopkins. And just a reminder that Remote Radio Week is organized by UNESCO in partnership with the World Health Organization, and Remote Radio Week is an online training program that's aimed at building the capacity of local radio stations to produce accurate and professional radio content in the event of containment measures or emergencies. So think the current state of the world with COVID, including financial difficulties as well. I'm Andy Lever, and as I said, we are joined by Rob Hopkins, otherwise known as Rob Radio. And Rob, you're going to be talking to us about free and open source radio tools. Welcome once again.
Yeah, hey Andy, hello everyone out there in Radio Land. This is great. I've been learning all kinds of different things from all over the world, Remote Radio Week. And Rob Hopkins, I'm up in the Yukon Territory. I'm just over by Alaska, just north of the 60th parallel. I lived up here for 40 years now, and I've been in the broadcast business 25 years. I developed software to run radio stations, radio in a box, emergency alerting. I work with open source all the time. And that's what we're going to be talking about is open source tools for broadcast. And open source is awesome. It does all kinds of great stuff. And you hear the word free with open source all the time. And what does free mean? And there's different kinds of software. The open source is, the documentation, the DNA is all public. You can see how the thing works. The blueprints are included with it. There's nowhere for viruses to hide inside of it. And people and entities give that software out to the community. And, with open source software, if there's a commercial product out there to do a specific task, there's somewhere in the open source world, there's an equivalent. So, for example, Photoshop, the graphics editor, there's an open source one called GIMP, Graphics Image Manipulation Program. It looks the same. It's got a mouse, very, very similar workflows. For Microsoft Office, the equivalent in open source world is called LibreOffice. Looks the same. You can print things. You can, format stuff. Very, very similar. And with broadcast tools, we're in luck. There's all kinds of really cool tools, and they're not watered down tools, or they're not light tools. They're really heavy duty commercial industrial tools that the source code's available for us all to use for free. And I've got a list of some of those things. I'll give you the address at the end of my presentation here that you can keep track of, so you don't have to write all this stuff down. Probably one of the first ones, and we're going to talk about cross-platform. Cross-platform means that it'll work on a Windows box or a Mac box or a Linux box. And some people think open source just means Linux. No, open source, you can have a Windows application or a Mac application inside it. So I'm going to talk about cross-platform applications, so you can use them on any kind of a system. So probably the first one is that I would recommend is called VLC, Video Land, and it's got a little thing, a traffic cone hat. You've probably used it before. And this is a media player. You can just pick out a bunch of songs you can listen to. It could be your cheap playout system. You could put some songs and just play the songs out of the sound card of your computer, hooked up to your transmitter. Doesn't cost a penny. Works on all the different things. It has many different advanced tools in it. You could create a web stream with that one. You could rip CDs. You could decode things. One of the biggest things that I use VLC for all the time is I can take a web stream or a media file and I can view the details of it, and it gives me such fine details about the codecs and the makeup of the different files and stuff. Really good program to have in your toolkit. Again, you go to media details, and it'll tell you all about codecs, and it'll show you any errors that you have. So that would be one of your first ones. Another one that I would take a look at is called Audacity, and Audacity is an audio editor. And you've probably used some of the commercial products out there. Adobe Audition is the expensive one. You have to pay for that and by the month and stuff. Does a whole bunch of different things. Anyhow, the equivalent in the open source world, Audacity. What a great program. And that thing can do 99% of the stuff that you want. Multi-track, effects. You can take your smartphone, you can record an MP3 file, open it up in Audacity, edit the thing, and then change some of the variables in it, the pitch, or you could give it a bass boost. I believe there's even a mobile app for this as well, that you can do it all inside your smartphone. So and the total cost of that is 100% nothing. So really handy tool to have. There's many other tools that you're going to use. The web browsers, Firefox, that's an open source tool, and it has different plugins inside it as well. So you can do all kinds of different things. Now there's radio automation, and again, I'm one of the players in that. I write software to run radio automation, so I'm not just using this as a sales pitch. But anyhow, there's a couple of big players out there. One is called Rivendell, and Rivendell is a hardcore radio automation to run your whole radio station. It doesn't do much stuff in the cloud per se. It's a standalone system. It's got a big learning curve, takes forever to figure it out, but it is really 100% rock solid. And again, all open source, doesn't cost anything. There's a couple of others out there. Airtime, LibreTime is one of them. Open Broadcaster. We all do things a little bit different than each other and stuff. Again, you go through the list of all the different features that you want for your system. So with the open source side of things, the question always comes up. People say, well, if you're making open source software and you're giving it out to the world to use for free, well, how do you make money at it? And so the business model on that, there's different ones, but usually what I do with my software, it's like a business card, and I give my software out, and people can use it for free, and they come back and they say, hey, that's really cool, but we don't know how to set up a server. Can you do it for us? I go, yeah, I can help you set that up. Or what will happen, another thing which is really beautiful about open source software is somebody will come to me or any other open source project, and they'll say, hey, that does everything that we want it to do, but there's one little thing that the thing doesn't do. If we come up with some money, can you build the thing for us? And yeah, we do that. And the other thing that happens as well with open source is somebody will get the software, and they'll be in a school, or somebody will have a little bit of higher learning, and then they'll say, hey, I found a bug in the thing, and they'll fix that bug and put that back into the open source software. Or the other thing is somebody will say, hey, I want to get that feature built, and they'll pool some resources together and find somebody to build that particular feature. And this goes on over and over again with open source software. So you are able to do that with the open source world because all the blueprints are included. It's not like a Microsoft thing where it's all assembled and you can't get into the source code. And the other thing with open source software is the big thing is that it is very, very secure, and there's very hard for bugs to get into it because again, all the plans are all published. There's no hidden backdoors and stuff. And the business case, to save everybody a little bit of time here, but a traditional open source network to a Windows network. So somebody will say, well, hey, you got this free software. We're going to use that, and we're not going to pay Microsoft for their license. Well, the other part to take into mind, yeah, you get the free software, but then you got to spend the time to figure it out. You got to hire somebody to install it and maintain it and stuff. So yeah, so open source, yes, you can save some money, but you don't save a ton of money. But the big thing that you do get is where your data is and who's using it, and you have very, very tight control of that. So open source is really, really good for that side of things as well. And Andy, you have any burning questions about the open source world? How they
Well,
work?
I think one pertinent question, particularly when things are free, is how porous, is it? In other words, what are the safety T's and C's, the implications of using programs that aren't necessarily in my control because they are free, or are they in my control?
Right. Well, that was the whole point about the Richard Stallman setting up the open source license years ago. When he set up the open source license for software, it was so that software would remain free. And the danger that they saw back then was people were going to create software, and then big corporations were going to grab onto it and then proprietize it and take it all away. And so that's what that open source license means. When you read through the license, is that you can use the software, you can make changes to it, but you can't take the software and make it disappear and take it off of the market. Now, having said that, this is exactly what Apple has done. And I'm not going to knock Apple. They got all the money in the world, but they took the open source world and they were able to legally do it. I don't know about ethically, but they were legally able to take all that open source software and to turn that into proprietary software. So, a lot of the stuff they use in Apple products is actual open source software that they've somehow managed to take away. So open source software, free and open software is the software is free and to stay out as free software, and also that you can use that software. And if you create the software, then if somebody else makes a change to it, then you have to recognize that person that made that change to that software with the license. So it's a very, very simple setup on the licensing side of things. Again, RTFM. Everybody know what RTFM is? Read the friggin' manual. When you click that thing and it says, "I accept the conditions of this license," do you read the thing? Right? I actually read those things every now and again. Not always, but every now and again, I actually do go and read through those things and see exactly what am I agreeing to. And with the open source models of licenses, they have a very, very plain language license. You can see exactly what you're getting into. And with open source licensing, you don't have to pay licensing fees. You can get it off the internet. You can use it. You can resell it. There's all kinds of different things that you can do with it. So it's not something that you have to keep putting money into. To have to pay for and stuff.
So whilst it may be free, or the software may be free, but what are the general overheads that a radio station should be cognizant of if they are going to be using these free resources? For example, when there are new versions of a VLC, does that mean that you should be increasing your RAM and getting external hard drives, servers, using the cloud, etc.?
Yeah, open source right now. This is a great time to be in open source, and our business too. We're getting through all of this sort of okay because we're into software. People that are into hardware stuff, proprietary hardware, the chips are gone. You can't even sell your products now and stuff. So software is a really nice thing. Generally, with open source software, you can run that on all kinds of different hardware. You don't have to buy the new newest piece of equipment. This guy right here, this is a neat thing. Anybody know what this thing is here? Yeah, it's a keyboard, but look at it in the back there, right? This is a Raspberry Pi 400. So, you got your network jack, your USB for your keyboard, micro HDMI. So this is the entire computer and everything, and you just plug a monitor into it and some open source software, and away you go. And open source, they do stuff like for the entire operating system, so it's not just an application. So everything that I'm doing on this call here is all done on open source software. You don't have to be a rocket science to install it or to get it set up. You can get a computer from the landfill, and you can repurpose that and put in open source software, and they make entire operating systems, and especially for multimedia and broadcast. That was one of the first big applications or business cases for developing software, was Hollywood movies and stuff and editing. So that you need to have all the horsepower to do your editing stuff. So like I say, there's tons of anything that you see on the market that you can pay for. There's usually an open source equivalent somewhere out there, and like I say, it's not that difficult to set up.
Sure. And that keyboard that you showed us, what is that called?
This is a Raspberry Pi 400 keyboard. It's the same computer that I had before, and this is doesn't have a ton of horsepower. I think you can run Audacity on it. I probably wouldn't edit too much audio on it. But, as a general purpose workstation in a studio, oh man, what a dream. And the operating system lives on a little SD card. You just pop the thing in, and away you go. The maintenance on looking after one of these things is like nothing. And, this is another one. If somebody wasn't on the other thing, this is a Raspberry Pi as well. And this has got an audio adapter. This is a Raspberry 4. The Raspberry 5 isn't out yet, but this is a Raspberry 4, and it's in a custom metal case. You could jump on top of this thing. It's got an add-on daughter board, a hat, and it's got balanced XLR. So this thing has, and we have a software image for it. So you put the image onto a SD card and boot it up, and this has an automation server, emergency alert system, playout box, everything you need to run your radio station on this. And the software for these, we give this out for free. The image that goes on the SD card. And then people say, well, that's great, Rob. You're giving things out for free and saving the world. How do you make money at that? It's like a business card. People say, oh, hey, that's really cool. I wish you could do such and such or build some other type of thing. And
that's fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that you've built, Rob, just in the interest of time, I think we should definitely just learn more about your emergency messaging system that you created, and why you felt the need for that particular system.
Yeah, so I work in broadcast and broadcast automation for small communities, and from day one, one of the cornerstones of our systems was emergency alerting. Hey, that map there, go back to that map. The green, this map is showing the use of Common Alerting Protocol. It's the international standard for emergency alerting. So I'm all about standards. Don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I made an open source client that works with the CAP alerting systems. So anywhere that you see the green, that's Common Alerting Protocol that is being used. And so our systems work in Canada, but any of those other countries that are using Common Alerting Protocol. So in Canada, if there's an emergency alert, all radio TV stations in Canada have to carry emergency alerts. So if there's a forest fire in my community in the summertime and emergency alert matches that, it'll automatically cut in and play that onto the radio. So that really adds value to radio. And for the open source side of things, we were able to make this work with open source so that community and indigenous radio stations didn't have to go out and buy a expensive proprietary piece of equipment. There's some stuff that's made in the US and it does like 101 things. It's really good stuff, but in Canada we only need it to do like 3 things. So we have a solution that we made for that. And with open source, you can do the sky's the limit. And we're already using open source all over the place, and especially for small broadcasters out there, really take notice in the open source stuff. It's like a mirror. The open source is like you look at the back of the mirror, you can see what's going on. And the beauty behind it, especially for us small broadcasters with limited budgets, is we can get access to those big tools that there's no way before we'd be able to do it. So a Wikipedia, we all look through Wikipedia, and it's a great resource tool, crowd sharing of content, and that's all built on open source. And so that open source system that runs Media Wikipedia, and they've taken all of that system and made that open source. So if you want to set up your own Wikipedia, you can use the same tools that they're using to build that, which is totally amazing. That's a huge giant thing. You could have something really big in scale. So again, you could build your own Wikipedia with those tools in open source, and you don't have to spend a penny. It's already out there.
Wow.
Yeah. So among many different things, again with the website that I have some links of some tools, some training guides, and some resources. Funding for radio stations is support.openbroadcaster.com. So support.openbroadcaster.com. You can find a link in there that has all the software that I talked about, and you can download that and hack around, and you can build your own radio station. You do not have to go out and buy really expensive tools and stuff, hardware. That Raspberry Pi, this little guy in here, this was like about $150 US. You get a beautiful piece of hardware and stuff. So there's
Fantastic.
all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's support.openbroadcaster.com. So if you think costs are a factor, we know that they are, but there are possibilities that can keep you on air and keep you functioning and keep you connected to your community if you are a radio station, or if you just are a media practitioner that may not necessarily have a big budget, but you have good content and good information to disseminate to the world. Thank you so much, Rob. That was most interesting. Leonard Kramer says, thanks for this masterclass. Some tools are always new for us. Is there a newsletter for this stuff?
Yeah, on our main website, openbroadcaster.com, there's a newsletter. We put that out a couple of times a year with tips and tricks and everything about the open source world. Again, we're all about open source software. And, the other thing which is really exciting about open source software, it's the open part, the open that I can be open to work with you and work with your systems, where people out there in broadcast land right now, everybody's got different systems, and you want to make your thing talk to that other guy's thing, then you got to get a middleware thing, and now you got a third party in the middle of it, and that guy's going to blame you, the other guy, that the thing doesn't work. And so anyhow, open source, I love open source. I can say, hey, I want that thing to talk to that thing. That problem solved, right? It's a real simple thing. And when we start talking about routing audio traffic and all these different things, we can visualize it, and we're just thinking, we just want to go this to this, right? And so with open source, yes, you can do that without breaking the bank. You don't have to spend a penny on it, and you can get that and be very, very secure as well in how you're running all your systems.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Radio Rob. Now I know why you have that nickname. You are a wealth of knowledge. This has been most insightful. What an absolute pleasure just picking your brain and unpacking the resources that are open to everybody, irrespective of whether you are a community station in a remote part of the world or you are a commercial station in the first world. So thank you very much for your insights there, Rob. Much appreciated. Up next, we've got 3 videos for you, one being Lifeline Programming, tools to support media programming in emergencies. Then that's followed up by Voice of Palong, looking at community radio reporters, and then the voice of Indigenous people. That will also be a video that is going to be played for you. Those of you watching, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Rob, once again. Stay tuned to Remote Radio Week for those videos that I mentioned. And of course, we do it all again tomorrow, last day of the week. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.